Whodunnit by Wesley Cragun. Chapter 1. There was a crisp breeze on the September air as the school bus made its way through light traffic in the pre-dawn hours. Inside the bus, most of the 10th grade class of Newberry School was barely awake, especially 15, almost 16-year-old Haley Jenkins, who had stayed up way too late the previous night talking on the phone with her best friend Susan Hartley, who was also in the same class and was currently asleep in the seat to Haley's left. However, none of this deterred Danny Adams and Eric Davis, two of the class troublemakers, from being wide awake and ready to pester them both. Haley was sitting in the seat next to the window, watching her brunette hair and hazel-eyed reflection stare silently back at her, almost ready to drift off to sleep, when she saw the reflection of a boy's hand appear in the window. She didn't have time to fully wake up before both of his index fingers, soaked in his own saliva, made their way into her ear holes. She let out a shriek, suddenly jerking wide awake. She grabbed at the boy's hands and pulled his fingers out. Next to her, Susan was now awake as well, her red hair a mess and covering her freckly pale face and green eyes. She was also screaming and blindly swatting away at the hands of another boy. They both turned around in their seats to see the boys. There was Danny Adams, tall and skinny, with brown hair, brown eyes, and an acne-riddled face, laughing and pointing at Haley with one of his still spit-covered fingers. "Ha ha, Wet Willie," he exclaimed. Next to him, Eric Davis, a boy with sandy-colored hair and blue eyes and freckles similar to Susan's, was laughing so hard at her that Susan felt flecks of spit hit her face. "We got you," he blurted out, shaking from laughter. Haley stood up and faced them with her hands gripping the top of the seat. "Okay, seriously," she yelled. "That was so not funny. You scared me to death and you got your disgusting spit all over me." "Yeah," said Susan, pushing her red hair out of her face and twisting her neck to look back at them. "It's too early in the morning for that. Could you two, get a life and leave other people alone?" Suddenly, an angry shout came from the bus driver. "Hey, whoever's back there doing all that yelling and standing up in their seats, be quiet and sit down right now." Danny and Eric were still chuckling and giggling as they plopped back down into their seats. Haley turned around and sat back down next to Susan, and they both began using their sleeves to clean the saliva out of their ears. All over the bus, the rest of the class was now wide awake and staring over at the seats of Haley and Susan, where the commotion had taken place. It was embarrassing at first, but Haley closed her eyes and pretended not to notice everyone watching her. Soon she began to grow tired again and fell asleep. When Haley woke up, the bus had arrived at the school and it was time to go in. As she stepped off the bus, she looked around, and there to her right was another bus, the one that carried the 4th grade class. Her 9-year-old siblings, Timothy and Catherine, who were fraternal twins, were the first off, followed by an army of other 9-year-olds. All three of the Jenkins children went to school at the same facility, which contained both the high school and pre-high school classes. The first class of the day was social studies at 7:30. During the lecture, Haley tried her best to listen to the teacher, Miss Platt, but it was difficult as she kept getting distracted by two other girls. At the front of the class, slightly to Haley's left and seated at desk right next to each other, were Hannah Turner and Tina Stamper, two of the most popular girls in the school. They kept leaning over and whispering to each other, then looking back at Haley and giggling. Miss Platt was distracted with her lecture and didn't seem to notice, so they continued to do this for most of class. "All right, just ignore them," Haley thought to herself. "If you pay too much attention to them, you might get in trouble. Just pretend like they aren't there." She continued to avert her gaze from the two whispering and giggling blondes, trying her best to focus on the lecture, but it was a struggle the entire time, as she still couldn't help but feel she was being talked about and made fun of. By the end of the class, she had barely managed to retain the information from Miss Platt's lesson. It had something to do with the Lewis and Clark exploration and a Native American lady called Sacagawea, but that is about all she could remember. Later that day at lunchtime, Haley sat across the table from her best friend Susan, who was joined on her right by a chubby girl with dirty blonde hair and pigtails called Abigail Sowers, and on her left by a boy named Wiley Burton, also chubby with blonde hair, which he parted down the middle. All four of them were close, but didn't get to see each other much outside of school. Wiley was the only boy in the group, but was totally accepted by the girls because of his sweet and innocent nature. "So," he said as he began sticking his fork into the baby carrots on his tray, Is everyone excited for autumn? Anybody got any fall plans? My mom and I are going to do a pumpkin carving on Saturday. Abigail leaned over and looked across Susan to where Wiley was sitting. Already? She asked. It's only early September. Why wouldn't you guys wait to carve pumpkins and stuff until closer to Halloween? It's never too early to have fun, Abby, Wiley answered between mouthfuls of carrots. Let me guess, said Abby. You're probably already listening to Christmas music too, aren't you? Wiley swallowed down his carrots and looked at Abby with innocent confusion. What's wrong with that? He asked. Abby smiled and shook her head as she dipped her spoon into a bowl of applesauce. You are so weird, she said. Ignoring Wiley's and Abby's conversation, Susan looked intently across the table at Haley. So, are you as tired of those boys as I am, or what? What boys? Asked Haley. Do you mean Danny and Eric? Yeah, said Susan, the ones that were sticking their nasty fingers in our ears this morning. Oh yeah, said Haley. That's like the third time they've done something like that. There was that time a few months ago when they were throwing water balloons at us, or that time when they were trying to rub mud on our clothes. I'm getting kind of sick of it. I was just thinking that maybe it was time to escalate it, said Susan. Escalate it? Asked Haley. Yeah, you know, as in tell somebody, Susan explained. Complain to somebody? There's no point, said Haley. Nobody ever does anything about it. Not the teachers, not the bus drivers, not anybody. Even when they see it happening, they don't say anything. She's got a point, you know, Abby joined in. I remember on the bus today when they were picking on you, the bus driver didn't care. He just yelled at you. But that's what they do, said Wiley, wiping his mouth on a napkin. The adults around here won't care if you're getting picked on, but if you do something about it, they'll just get you in trouble, won't they? Well, that's not very helpful, said Susan, looking at Wiley with a frown. What? Said Wiley. I'm just telling you what will happen. It still has to be addressed, said Susan, twirling her fork in some mac and cheese. Anyway, let's deal with it later. I'm tired of talking about it right now. The rest of the day felt long and slow to Haley, who was thinking a lot about what to do about her fellow classmates picking on her, but never being able to think of any solutions. This made the rest of her classes more boring and difficult to focus on, just like social studies had been. When the final bell rang at 3 p.m., announcing the end of the school day, Haley went outside with Susan, Abby, and Wiley, where the three of them suddenly ran into Brady Lane, a boy from the 11th grade class. Brady had turned 16 not long ago and was not that much older than Haley. He was tall, well-built, and handsome, with wavy brown hair and deep brown eyes, and Haley would have been lying if she said she didn't find him somewhat attractive. She stopped in her tracks when she saw him, pulling up her backpack by the strap slightly and brushing a strand of her brunette hair behind her ear. Oh, hi, Brady, she said, smiling at him. How's it going? It's going all right, said Brady, smiling back at her. How's it going with you, Haley? Susan, Abby, and Wiley stood silently and listened, feeling somewhat awkward and out of place as they witnessed Haley and Brady begin to flirt. So, do you have any plans for after school, Brady asked. Not today, Haley said, still smiling, but I do have a birthday party coming up after school tomorrow. I'm turning 16. If you want to come, you're definitely invited. All right, thanks, said Brady. I'll be there. I'm going to hop on the bus now. See you around. Okay, bye. Haley waved at him, still smiling stupidly as he walked away. Hey, said Susan, grinning and nudging Haley's arm. Do you like him? Haley grinned back at her, blushing. Maybe a little, she said shyly. But before they got any further in the conversation, the bus driver's loud voice rang out across the air. All right, we're about to take off. All of you stragglers, hurry and get on or I'm leaving you.